Welcome to the Discourse on the FM Morning Show. Kingsley, Bassey is my name. I'm joined this morning by a former governorship candidate of Lagos, in the 2023 gubernatorial elections, Funso Doherty, without the H in the Funso. Very good morning to you.
Good morning, Kingsley. How are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you.
Pleasure to be here.
Yes, so pleased to have you live in the studio. I kept being warned that don't put the H in the Funso. Don't. And I said, okay. Yes. I must say that first, you have a very robust team working with you. Very impressed with the organization of your team. And that tells a lot about your personality. You have a robust, let's say, enviable private sector experience, and so understand why maybe you have that robust, very organized team.
Well, yeah, I mean, we're fortunate to have a number of people who are very talented in their own rights, and have developed themselves strong in their respective fields, who have chosen to identify with the work that we're doing. And not all of them are compensated for what they do.
Wow.
But they believe in what we do, and they believe in the objective of driving governance in the right direction. And so, I'm very proud of that team, and I'm sure we'll continue to do great things going forward.
Interesting. So when you say not all members of your team are compensated, so they're doing this as volunteers?
Some of them are, yes.
Interesting. All right. That wasn't going to be that definitely was not my first question when I had that in mind when I was prepping for this conversation. Yes. Yep. My very first question is, how does it feel being in opposition in Lagos State? How does it feel? The 2023 Guber election in Lagos it's gone, and now you have to play opposition, put government's feet to the fire, literally. How does that feel?
Well, I would say that it is maybe challenging, maybe sometimes a bit of a lonely road. But for me, it's all part of the fabric of governance, particularly in a democratic setting. In other words, democracy only works if you have alternatives and if you have opposition. It's almost like a premise on which democracy stands. And so for me, that's clearly part of my own understanding of how democracy should work. And if you observe, my actions, and you've followed me up to this point, you will see that I think my actions reflect those words. And what we've done since the elections is not to toe the path that is sometimes told, where people go off and lick their wounds for 3 years and then come back and do battle again in the fourth year. But to say that, look, there's value that we can add in the interim, and that also gives us an opportunity to let people know that there are alternative ways of doing things, and also to call the government out when we feel the government needs to be called out, and that way the people start to benefit from our contribution even before we get into the seat. And by the way, I expect that when we do get into the seat, that others will also do the same to us.
Right. You did start your response to this particular question about being playing the position in Lagos by saying that you feel like it's a lonely road. What exactly do you mean by that? You not getting support from Lagosians, or what do you mean?
Well, typically in our environment, what you'll find is that because there is a strong sense of incumbency, right? People will often align with whatever is the ruling party.
And do you think that is so?
I think it's a bit of a normal thing that you find anywhere, because people, it's swimming against the grain, actually, when you are in opposition, right? And so there are a lot of people, for example, whose businesses rely on, having good relationships with government. There are a lot of people who are pursuing opportunities with government. So, it's not a mandate of the general public, really, to be opposition, right? So opposition is generally going to be, there are going to be few of you who are in opposition, right, actively. People may identify with the message, right, in terms of the larger population. But as for those of you that are going to be out there speaking up against things that the government might be doing that they ought not to be doing, there's just not going to be all that many in the public space.
Opposition politics in Lagos and the role Funso Doherty has been playing since 2023. As a matter of fact, if you head straight to his social media handle, I think the fourth post you find this morning is that now. The third would be his the flyer for this conversation, right? The first is pinned there, the second another one, and as a matter of fact, the second happened he posted that yesterday, and that's something a letter he wrote to the state governor, right? There's a reason this has been highlighted. For some weeks now, we've been talking about the role that the opposition has been playing, not just in Lagos but in Nigeria, and how many persons have said that the opposition has been maybe docile, right, just been there. So what do you say? I see that you've written a letter to the state government about students providing tax clearance. What's that about?
So, first of all, this is one in a number of communications that we've done to the government. So we certainly have not been docile. But this is a policy which came to the fore and was reported widely, I think last week, that the state government is requiring. The state government has a policy of free WAEC registration for public school students, right, in senior secondary, but that they are requiring that those students provide tax clearance of their parents or their guardians. And in the event that they are not able to produce those tax clearances, they need to make some payment, right, in order to, in lieu of taxes, to get the tax clearance. And so this letter is basically saying that policy is ill-advised, and that that is not the way to enforce tax compliance. We are fully supportive of tax compliance and enforcement, but that should be pursued separately and should not take the future of these kids to ransom, right, at a point when they're about to register for their WAEC. Remember that these are students who are already enrolled in public schools and are just at the point now writing WAEC. By the way, education policy is something that is foundational, right? It is in everybody's interest to ensure that basic education, which includes secondary education, is afforded to all children, right? Because it has implications for many things. It has implications for the lives of those children themselves. But beyond that, it has implications for the state in terms of the productivity of these people, the prosperity of the state, per capita incomes, development, etc. So at the end of the day, it is in everybody's interest, really, not to create obstacles to that basic education requirement.
And so you're yet to get the response from government, I suppose?
No, we haven't gotten a response.
You're expecting one?
Most of what we've done, we haven't gotten responses. Some we have. But it really doesn't matter to us. I think what's important is that we engage and put it out there in the public space, and then the people take it and also engage.
Another thing you've taken, from your camp, you've really try to push would be the controversial, if I need to put that there, controversial Lagos Calabar Coastal Highway project.
Yes.
That matter is in court. You just want to very quickly mention where exactly we are now.
So, as you know, in that matter, we essentially sued the BPP, that's the Bureau of Public Procurement. We sued the Ministry of Works and Ministry of Environment through the Attorney General as well, and with High Tech as a co-defendant.
Yeah.
And really, the action is really saying that the award of that contract was invalid because the provisions of the Public Procurement Act were not followed. And that contract, despite it's been a massive contract, 15 trillion contract, the first two phases alone being 2.5 trillion, was awarded on a single source basis without a competitive process, which, our contention is that the Public Procurement Act does not allow that. And there are also questions around the environmental impact assessment and so on, which a separate law covers that, the Environmental Impact Assessment Act, which we believe was also breached. And if you think about these acts, these laws, the Public Procurement Act and the Environmental Impact Assessment Act, they are there for the protection of the citizens, but to guide the actions of government.
Yeah.
So government is the one taking the decision a lot of the time, not always in the case of the Environmental Impact Assessment, but certainly in the Public Procurement Act, to guide the actions of public procurement. So where there are breaches, it is not unusual that you might find that the person that's breaching that law is the government. And therefore, you may not see the government pursuing an action against the government. And so we feel that, this should not be, that this is something that is pervasive, but especially for a very large contract like this. These are the means by which the public does not get value for the expenditure of public funds. And the Public Procurement Act was enacted for a purpose, for this specific purpose. And we believe that it's incumbent on an engaged citizenry to hold the government to account when the government itself is not complying with its own laws.
And so, again, that matter is still in court.
Still in court, yes.
Any progress? When is the next sitting?
So, the next sitting actually ought to have been this week in 2 days' time.
Wednesday.
But Wednesday. But we got a notice that the Honorable Justice will be away attending a seminar this week. And so we'll have to reschedule that date. That date is for the substantive hearing of the matter. So we've had about 3 or 4 different dates at which the preliminaries have been done, papers have been filed, affidavits and counter affidavits have been filed. And so it is the substantive hearing of the case that we're supposed to have this week, which we'll now reschedule, I'm sure, within the next couple of weeks. My next
question sounds like a beer parlor question. You know what they say. But then it is vital and, Lagos, Nigeria, you would know the reason why. Do you trust, you've gone to the court, you're seeking redress in court, but do you trust the judicial process in Nigeria? Do you trust that, the courts will do justice to this matter?
So my answer to that question is as follows. The judicial system is the judicial system. And we are before a judge. And so far, I have no reason to believe that the judge will not approach his duties in the case, with the to discharge the public trust that his seat connotes, right? So I have no reason to doubt that in this particular matter. And so I will approach it from that perspective and continue to have good faith that, we've taken a case before the judge. It's been argued by learned counsel. The judge is a qualified judge, and therefore he should rule in accordance with the law. I don't want to make generalizations. I want us to pursue this action and give everybody the benefit of the doubt that they will do what is their job to do.
Sticking with the court some more, Funso Doherty. By the way, Lagos, 0909-555-1039 is a number to call to join the conversation. Again, 0909-555-1039. If you have comments, if you have questions, if you have thoughts, why not? Call the studio lines and be part of the show. Again, 0909-555-1039. Number to call. There's one more number, 0703-2277-338. Again, 0703-2277-338. Number to call to be part of the show. This is the Discuss on the Law FM Morning Show, and you're live on the station where you hear the law, where you talk the law, and you know your rights like never before. Kingsley, Bassey is my name. I'm joined this morning by Lagos Guba candidate in the 2023 elections. That's Funso Doherty. And we're talking politics, we're talking governance, we're talking these sort of things in Lagos, Nigeria. And yeah, sticking with the quote, you didn't, and correct me if I'm wrong, you didn't contest the election result in 2023.
No, we didn't.
Why was that?
So, I mean, what would we be contesting? The fact that we won? Because I don't think we won that election. So,
okay.
So I won't go to court to say that we won, right? So, if I thought that we won, then I would go to court and say that we won, right? But as you know, I contested that election. I contested it on the platform of the African Democratic Congress then. It was I would say not one of the mainstream platforms. That notwithstanding, we came fourth in that election after APC, Labour, PDP was then my candidacy on the platform of ADC. And so I think what we did was to lay a foundation which we are building upon in this election cycle, which, I mean, we can talk about more if you...
Definitely. I was just going to mention you've since moved to the People's Democratic Party.
Yes.
That party in Lagos State has been rumored to be quite docile. They just spring forth every election cycle and then present a candidate and delegations too allegations, rumors. We cannot substantiate that. As Law FM 103.9, we cannot, we have not independently verified that this rumors are true. So again, delegations. And the fact that the leadership of the PDP in Lagos State is not really willing to go to the government house, and so they just present candidates and go to bed, really. Some say that they're in the pocket of the governing party in Lagos. You've since moved there. What have you discovered? Are you confident that you can clinch the seats in 2027 if you're contesting? I suppose that's why you moved there.
Yeah, I mean, look, people will always have things to say, and there may, you may argue that there's no smoke without fire or what have you, but, in the first place, political parties are multifarious organizations. So there's no political party that does not have, maybe internal tensions or even, maybe a bit of infiltration here. And this is true of APC or PDP or any party. All right. Now, that's number one. Secondly, is the fact that, if you look at it, where have the real challenges come from, to the ruling party in Lagos State over the years, right? So you may say that PDP has not won, but most of the challenges have come from the PDP.
Except in 2023.
Except, I said most, not all.
Okay.
Most of the challenges have come from PDP.
Yeah.
And so, and so, when you think about it from that perspective, the fact that it has not won, and the fact that you've had one incumbent party from inception, does not mean that there isn't a substantial opposition to it on the ground, even though that has not prevailed. Now, is there division? Are there maybe internal conflicts that have to be managed and so on? I think the answer is yes. But part of our judgment is that, we can be part of that process right, of bringing a synthesization, right, and having a rallying point around which this battle can be fought going forward. Bear in mind that when things like this exist, they are played up, right, by the other side, right. So if there's a quarrel here, the other side will shout, say they are disorganized, right. The same thing we would do in the case of APC. So now they are disorganized and they're fighting. Who's our speaker today? We have one speaker today. We have another speaker tomorrow. So is a normal part of politicking, all right. But I can tell you that the party that can mount a significant and that will consistently be a challenger to the ruling party is the PDP, because I think the national structures are there. If you think about the number of governors that are elected on the platform of the PDP, if you think about the number of legislators that are elected on the platform of the PDP and that exist in government today, that is not something that can be wished away. And so you will always have that.
That's at the national level, though.
Yes.
But if you narrow things down to Lagos State, those numbers, that you boast of within the PDP is limited, right? As a matter of fact, maybe non-existent within the state. For example, the State House of Assembly, how many lawmakers, do you have there that belong to the People's Democratic Party? So you look at that and you're wondering, in Lagos State, where you would, like you've said, from the judgment of your camp, is that you can be the rallying point to make things happen within the PDP. Someone tried last year, we won't go there yet, but if you look at that critically, do you think that you really can do this job? Because again, in Lagos State, even at the national level, like you've said, yes, that may be amplified sometimes, even the media, and I say this, I take responsibility that we amplify these things maybe beyond proportion sometimes. There are crises here and there, and that we amplify, we talk about, but it's for good, right? But again, do you think that with what's your assessment of the current leadership in the People's Democratic Party in Lagos State?
Well, when you say what is the assessment of leadership, I mean, the leadership includes all of us. I'm part of the leadership of the PDP now.
Okay.
All right. So the leadership includes all of us, and I think that individually, we have leaders that can stand up, anywhere in the political landscape. We may not have been as united, right? And that's part of what I say when I say that a rallying point is vital, right, going forward, right? But let me address the earlier part of your question, which is that, you see, something always seems impossible, right, until it is done. We all know that APC lost Lagos State in the presidential election.
Yes.
In the last cycle.
Yes.
Right? That's Lagos State, right? So you have to concede that if they could lose the presidential, they could lose the governorship. You have to concede that, right?
Many did say too that if the governorship happened on the same day, they probably would have lost it.
They might have lost it.
Yes.
So some have said that also. So this dominance that we're talking about, right? And by the way, if you go back and you look, you see that Lagos has been won with fewer and fewer votes through the election cycle. You see what I mean?
Yes.
If you add to that the fact that even these votes that we're talking about, Lagos has the lowest nationally in terms of the voter turnout. So it was elected with, maybe 1 million votes out of 7 million registered voters. That's about 15%. That's the lowest nationally. You see what I mean? So it is not a dominance it's dominant in the sense that they are the only ones that have been in power, but it's not a dominance in terms of what I would call the popular vote, if you see what I mean.
Yeah.
So I think that things can stay the same for 30 years, but when they're going to change, it's in one day that they change.
And you think that change could come in 2027?
I absolutely think it could come in 2027.
You have a major contender in Jandor, Jide Adeniro, right? Who, by the way, was in the news yesterday. He had a Thanksgiving service yesterday, right? Yesterday was Sunday. Good. He contested. He was the flag bearer, a position you're looking to take in 2027. It was a flag bearer in 2023. Came a distant third, and now you want to take that. How do you think that could play out? Again, yes, this is contested by primaries, I'm sure you're going to say, but then aren't you worried faced by this challenge?
No, can't come into politics and be worried about challenges, right? Because there will always be challenges. There will be challenges. First of all, it's not clear who the various contestants in the race will be. I don't know if he has indicated that he intends to be in the race. I don't know. But whatever the case may be, whatever the contestants there are or the aspirants that there are in the race, we will go through that process, and the process will produce a candidate. And at that point, we will go into the general election. So I think that it's not something that, it's just the normal process. I'm not really giving it too much thought. Usually
this question comes very close to the elections, the primaries, for example. It's 2025 now. A lot of persons will say, just focus on governance. We started with that. By the way, 0909-555-1039. We're taking calls and contributions, and 0703-2277-338, number to call and to send messages to via WhatsApp. As we continue the conversation, again, that question I was going to pose is, okay, well, this comes during in the build up to the elections. If you're not the flag bearer for the PDP, would you be switching camps again, or what?
So, I mean, look, in the first place, you don't start a race by saying that, what if you don't win the race? If you don't win the race, what will you do? Okay? So let's go into the race. Let's fight the battle, and let's take it from there. We have every intention of being in the race, and by the grace of God, if we do what is the work that's required for us to do, we will win that nomination and be the candidate, and we'll take it from there. As to what you would do if that doesn't happen, well, let's wait for that not to happen first before we do it.
All right. Okay, then. You did mention the State Assembly, the Lagos State Assembly. The crisis there is something, right? The lawmakers there and the supporters of the All Progressives Congress would tell you there is really nothing there. The lawmaker was impeached, and that's that. And so they're proceeding with their job as lawmakers. But what do you know about the internal politics, that goes behind the scene, as well as where you think, or what you think should be done to ensure governance continues and Lagosians continue to benefit in terms of the dividends of democracy? With the politics happening there, some have claimed this is pure external interference. Do you agree with that?
External from where now? Where would the external be coming from? Because they control the executive, they control the legislature, right? They control the federal, right? So I'm not sure where the external will come from. And at the end of the day,
by that I mean not solely the decision of the lawmakers to have done that.
I see what you mean. Okay. Look. I'm not a member of APC, so I don't know what their internal politics is. But what I see is what everybody sees, which is that clearly there's some dissent or discord in the ranks. I think it's also not surprising actually, because if we look at the history of the way the legislature in Lagos State has operated, it has never struck me as a particularly independent legislature in the first place, right? So I think there's a very monolithic control structure within the Lagos, governance structure within the ruling party. So, and that relates not even only to the legislature, but even to the executive, right? So, so that monolithic nature, I think, is what is being reflected, and it's been tested actually by this, and those things never last forever. Those things never last forever, and maybe the unraveling of that is what we're beginning to see.
How do you looking to take advantage of this? You're looking to take advantage of this. There'll be local government elections in coming months, right? Is the PDP working towards actively participating to take charge of governance at the local level in some way?
Yeah, that work is going on. And people those folks who feel that they have a mandate or a calling to operate at that level are also making their own efforts and preparations and all of that to get into that contest. Of course, the character of local government, the whole character of local governance itself, is in a bit of a flux and seems to be evolving, right? Particularly with this Supreme Court judgment on local government autonomy. And so I think that watching that space will be quite interesting going forward, because, what happens when you see a judgment like we saw from the Supreme Court is there's been a power shift essentially, right? And because with resources comes power.
Yeah.
And with the control of resources comes power. So to the extent that the control of those resources are now vested in those entities at that local level, you will begin to see them flex their muscles more. The contests for those positions will become more, more aggressive, and hopefully over time the quality of leadership that would emerge there would also become strong.
You challenged the 2025 budget.
Yes.
Of Lagos. What's your challenge with that, or what's your concern with that budget? Some say that there's some level of secrecy attached to certain, parts of the budget that's not transparent enough. Is that the sentiment you share?
The letter I wrote on the budget actually talks about 3 or 4 different things. One of them is this question of transparency. So the idea that when the budget is presented, debated, and passed, the details of the budget are not in the public domain, right? So we don't know what the details of the budget are, the breakdown of things and so on and so forth. So it's difficult to form opinions, even though with time you get to see it maybe a quarter or 2 down the road when they start reporting, right? So that's problematic, right? That lack of transparency is problematic. For example, because one of the things that we saw in prior years was that there was a large item for special duties, something called special duties expense, almost 250 billion naira, one line item. You understand? And maybe if that comes out in the course of the budget process, it can be challenged at that point to say, what is this?
I remember the fragrance thing too.
Yeah, and those, of course, those are also after the fact. But so that's the one thing. Second is that, there tends to be overestimation generally in the budgets, right? So this year now is 3.4 trillion. Last year it was like 2.3 trillion or 2.6 trillion, something like this. And they're overestimated, and the actuals never sort of catch up with those. And what that happens when there's nothing really to be gained from those overestimates, right? Because what it means is that you just don't prioritize effectively, and the things that you should do, you end up not doing because you have used resources that you don't have to do other things on the basis of the fact that you're going to have large number of resources that you don't have. So that's number 2. Number 3 is Lagos State's debt, which is very significant and has actually grown quite a lot. And the main reason being that Lagos has borrowed a lot of money in foreign currency.
Are we not generating enough to be borrowing so much?
So we're generating, and there's nothing wrong with debt in and of itself, and I have said so in the past, but a state government should not be borrowing a lot of money in foreign currency.
In foreign currency.
Yes, and that is the position in Lagos State. Lagos, if you look at Lagos State's debt today, about 70% is in foreign currency. Lagos State, its revenue base is Naira based. It's from taxes, it's from levies, and so on and so forth, which are Naira based. And what has happened then is that you've seen a ballooning in the state's debt as currency has weakened, right? So that's problematic, and we spoke out against that. The final thing that I would say is that, you know, anytime you have this budget cycle and the budget presentation before the House, and this latest presentation which generated all of this problem for the Speaker, you know, the governor comes and he reels out, he speaks for about 30-45 minutes, reels out, we're doing this, we're doing this, we're doing this, we're doing this activity, this activity, this activity, activities, okay? But the purpose of government is not activities. The purpose of government is the welfare and the security of the people.
But these things bring welfare, don't they? Road, infrastructure, and the rest?
So what you then ask yourself is, what is the quality of life of the citizens after 25 years of budgetary process, right? What is the standard of living? What are the per capita incomes? To what extent do they have access to things like water? To what extent is the quality of their transportation better? To what extent is their education better? To what extent is their healthcare better? Do you understand? These are the things that the ultimate outcome of governance. So you can be, you know, the fact that you have somebody running around banging nails and hammers and all doesn't mean that they are building anything of significance, right? You see what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think that ultimately, when we go back and we look at, you know, what is the outcome of a generation of expenditures in terms of the quality of life of the people at the end of that generation, right? That is, and relate it to the amount of resources that have been expended over that generation. That is when you have a true test of the quality of governance.
All right, we've got to go now. But just before we go, you have a robust private sector experience.
Yeah.
Not so much can be said about public, service. The closest you've come, and a lot of persons were looking forward to that, was your nomination in 2017, which was not confirmed, sadly. And for many,
we were not presented for confirmation. Not that we weren't confirmed.
Yeah.
There's a distinction.
Yes, you need to clarify that. Okay. So you don't know Lagos, or maybe you do. For those who don't, Funso Doherty was nominated to be the Director General of the National Pension Commission, right? Sadly, again, you've heard that he wasn't, alongside some commissioners, right? He wasn't presented for confirmation. Well, I don't know what reason, but there's no time to talk about that right now. I was just going to mention that, for many persons, they want to see someone rugged, someone who has rugged in quote now, who has, some public service experience, as they say, someone who has been into politics, who's grounded in politics, can play this, can play here, can play left, can play right, can play center and the rest. Are you that person? And if you're not, or whether you are that person or not, what do you say to Lagosians today in terms of your personality and governance? As you have presented in 2023, and you're still presenting going forward?
Well, I think Lagosians will make their judgments, and I think I give credit to people to have the ability to make those choices. But what I would say is that the following: one, you see, all these things that you reeled out, people that are rugged, that are in the politics, that can move this way and move that way, and all those things you said. All the people that we've had fit that mold, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay. Are we happy with the outcomes of all the people that we've had?
Lagosians.
So that's the question that you first ask yourself. That what it tells you is that none of those things is consistent necessarily with good governance. Okay. What is needed ultimately is leadership, capacity, and character. Okay, and these are things that are forged by people who have occupied positions of responsibility, been entrusted with men, materials, and resources, and have executed and discharged themselves creditably and discharged those trusts in a way that the people, that if you went back and you asked the people that they led, they will tell you that they were well led by that person. You see what I mean? And that leadership capacity and that governance capacity exists both in the private sector and in the public sector. And what you need are people who have both the desire, the ability, but also the character and the intention to do the right thing by the people. Because it's not only about being, politically smart. It's not also about having strategy. You can use all of that to get in there for your own reasons. And that a lot of the time is what we have seen. What you need is people in positions of leadership who understand that leadership is a trust on behalf of the people, who have capacity and will surround themselves with people of capacity and deploy all of those resources, men and materials, furthering the interests of the people and improving people's lives.
We'll take that as your part in short this morning. So there you go. That's the conversation this morning with Funso Doherty, 2023 Guba candidate in Lagos. Is now with the People's Democratic Party. If you've been following politics, Lagos politics especially, you probably know that. If you don't, well, you're welcome. You're welcome. Well, thank you so much for stopping by. Truly appreciate that. We'll continue to engage with you, with every single person involved when it comes to governance in Lagos and in Nigeria. That would be that for now. Lagos, it's been the Discourse on the Left Hand Morning Show. We're back tomorrow. 6 to 9 o'clock is the time for the conversation on the Left Hand Morning Show tomorrow. It's been a fantastic ride. You can catch this particular episode when you go to socials. Of course, later in the day today, God willing, you'd find that there, and you can catch up on the conversation if you like. One more time, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you, Kingsley. Thanks for having me.